Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm doing my June wrap up. So I'm going to be reviewing all of the 15 books that I read in the month of June. And if you're new here, how I do my wrap ups is I start with the books I like the least and then I work my way up to the books I like the most. So I start with rants and I have a couple of them today and then I will end on raves. So before we get started, I just quickly have two things that I need to mention. The first being I have a Patreon. So if you haven't heard, I have a Patreon. The link is always in the description box down below. I'm having so much fun over there. For the month of July, we are reading Night Shoot by David Sodergren for the book club tiers. So yeah, that live show discussion on Patreon will be on July 27th if you want to join us. But other than that, I'm having so much fun. Everyone is so nice. Like, we chit chat on Discord all day long. Like, I'm planning on adding in some like reading sprints and things like that into the tiers. So those will be updated soon, but if you want to join us, link is down below. I would love to see you over there. I'm having so much fun. I love it. And then the other thing is that I want to quickly thank Rose Forever New York for partnering with me on today's video. If you guys don't know, Rose Forever is a New York-based rose brand launched in 2019, and they design luxurious rose boxes with natural roses that will last a year because they are preserved with natural oils, and all their bouquets are handcrafted. They have so many different styles and designs to pick from. All of their stuff is gorgeous. They have different colors. So if you didn't know, I have worked with them before in the past, and this is my bouquet here. I have the light pink arrangement in the black marble box, and I absolutely love these. I've had these for over a month now, I believe, and I mean, they still look the exact same as the day that they arrived. I've had them just sitting on my dining room table and they are just gorgeous. I love them so much. They smell like fresh roses. They are, you know, they do pop a little bit of scent in there and they still smell fresh. Like a month later, they still smell like roses. I also love how all of their materials that they use are vegan and allergen free, and they're just gorgeous. I love roses so much, and I love the color light pink, so I'm just obsessed. So if you want to check out Rose Forever New York, I will pop all their information in the description box down below so you can check them out. And thank you again, Rose Forever, for partnering with me on today's video. So I already filmed this wrap up, so we're just gonna do a quick outfit change and I'll be right back. So I had kind of a shitty reading month. I had a lot of 1 stars. I had a lot of books that were just like right down the middle, okay. And then I had 2 5-star books and 1 4.5 that I really loved. But so we're just gonna kind of talk about all of them. I'm going to start with my rants. And then we're gonna end on some raves. So, oh man, there were 3 like very popular books that I gave 1 star this month. I think the worst one out of the 3 was Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay. I am getting rid of this book, even though it's gorge. This book was not, okay? So this is, of course, a general horror book. Everyone's been freaking out about it. Everyone was giving it really great reviews, and now recently people are giving it not so great reviews. But we're following this guy who in the 90s was in this horror movie. The name of it was Horror Movie, and basically only 3 scenes were ever released. Like, the entire movie was not released. Only these 3 scenes were, and it gained this cult following, and you know, it blew up. So now in present day, they are asking him to do a reboot. So that's this book. We're following past and present timelines. In the past, we are getting the movie script, like the screenplay for the movie, and we find out like what happened in those scenes and kind of what happened, because they're saying that it's cursed because everyone involved died afterwards except for our main character. So that's what this is. The screenplay, fucking terrible. Weird, bizarre, confusing. The way that this book was written was just confusing to me. The screenplay was boring, it didn't make sense. It kind of had like this weird like internal dialogue in it. It didn't make sense. What actually happened was not that shocking. It was not that creepy. It was not that crazy. I was just like waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting for something to happen. And then when it finally happened at the end of the book, I was like, oh, that's it? That's it. Really, that's it. I hate smart people horror. Like, I hate horror books where they're just boring and meandering, but yet everyone thinks that they are smarter than you if they understand it and you don't. That's kind of how I feel about this book. It just feels like pretentious. Like, his books are very pretentious. They're very like intellectual. I don't know what it is. Like, his writing drives me nuts. It was so boring. I went to school for special effects makeup, okay, and I am certified in, and I'm actually able to do that, believe it or not. And I never thought the present day chapters where he's like getting ready for this movie reboot, I never thought that like someone could make special effects so fucking boring, but Paul Tremblay managed to do that. I mean, this book was just a meandering freaking mess, okay? It was a mess. That's how bad this book was. It was boring. It was so boring. I fell asleep 100 times. It took me like 2 weeks to read this book. And people were like, at least the chapters are short. It's a quick read. I was like, my brain could not focus on this book. My brain did not care about this book. I hate this book. I hate this book so much. And then I also read, that was in a vlog, in a horror reading vlog. They'll all be linked down below. But then I also read Sally Rooney's Normal People. I gave her a second chance this year because I really hated Conversations with Friends. I filmed an entire spoiler video on this book, so if you want to know spoilers, if you don't want to read this book, or if you want to know my thoughts about what happened in this book, make sure you check that video out. But this was so bad. So I hate her writing. I absolutely hate Sally Rooney's writing. I just think her characters are very two-dimensional. Oh, by the way, before I get ahead of myself, this is about a girl who is in love with this guy. They're at the end of their high school year together and they're about to go to college. So you follow them throughout high school and college. And he's like really cool and popular in high school, and she's a hideous freak according to everyone in this book. And then when she goes away to college, she's like hot and he is not. He's just a boy, she's just a girl, cannot make it any more obvious. So that's this book. It was just so boring, first of all. Second of all, ridiculous. I didn't really understand. It's like they keep coming back to one another, like no matter where life takes them, and she's in all these like horrible abusive relationships and keeps coming back to him. And it's like this story where they keep finding each other, but like why? Like, she didn't give me anything that made me feel like their relationship was worth anything. I just felt like they shouldn't be together. And I was like, but why do they keep fighting each other? It doesn't make sense. I can't stand her characters. I can't stand her writing. The no quotation marks. Sally Rooney. She is my literary enemy. I'm done with her. Then moving on, oh, I read Riley Sager's new book, Middle of the Night. I gave this one 1 star. Also have an entire video on this with spoilers as well. It's non-spoiler and spoiler. So if you want to hear about that, check that video out as well. But this was his new book about this guy with a male perspective, and he in the 90s, when he was a kid, had this little like camping sleepover thing with his friend, and his friend was snatched from the tent and was never seen again. So now in present day, like, he's in his 40s, he's still having nightmares, he has anxiety, he has no idea what happened to his friend, and so we're trying to figure out what happened in the 90s. And this book was very slow, it was boring, it had a lot of ridiculous subplots that ended up amounting to nothing in the end. It has some supernatural elements to it, but again, like, nothing was super prominent in this book. And then the ending, the twist, ridiculous, typical ridiculous. This is probably my least favorite Riley Sager, right after House at the House Across the Lake or whatever. This was just so fucking ridiculous. This entire book was ridiculous and it felt like a waste of time. But like at the same time, I'm like, but it wasn't as bad as Paul Tremblay, so maybe this is like a 1.5. That's honestly how bad I hated that Paul Tremblay book. I'm like, maybe Riley deserves some grace after that one. Oh, and also again, like even though he wrote a male perspective, like he was still dumb and boring and two-dimensional again. Whatever. Ugh, I'm dripping here. I'm just dripping talking about Riley Sager. Okay, moving on, I had two-star books. The first one was Absorbed by Kylie Whitehead. This is a book about a woman who, she's in this relationship, it's like a 10-year relationship. Things are kind of falling apart and she can feel her boyfriend kind of slipping away and she feels like they are not, you know, getting along like they used to. So she literally absorbs him. Like while they're having sex, she absorbs him and his body is inside of hers and she starts like getting the traits of him, like his good characteristics, and starts kind of learning from him. And this book sounds interesting, but it was not. It was extremely boring. I wasn't interested in the characters. Like the main character just wasn't giving me, Michelle wasn't giving me anything like to hold on to. I just felt like she felt very flat. I didn't really care about her life. There was nothing emotional connecting me to this book, so therefore I didn't really care. And then nothing happens at the end. It's like I've read this whole book and there was no resolution or ending to it. I just don't really understand. Everyone is saying that this is emotional, that it's funny. It's not funny, it's not emotional. I don't really understand what this is supposed to be, but I did not like it. Whatever. Then I read my first Dennis Cooper. I've been wanting to read his books for forever now, especially The Sluts, which I'm going to get to for a video, and I'm so excited because that one seems right up my alley. But I decided to try Closer first, which is kind of like a series about this boy, George, and how like all these other boys are kind of like obsessed with him. Like they kind of lust after him. He's just very interesting, I guess. But we are following a bunch of these boys in high school and some older pedophiles, POVs, and how they kind of use George and take advantage of him. And it's really just a lot of sex, a lot of gay sex in this book. I don't know what else to really say. Like, that's it. That's this book. It's very like disturbing, it's graphic, it's violent, it's disgusting, and like, which is fine for me. I don't have triggers. A lot of people are saying that this is like the most disturbing book they've ever read. I didn't really feel that way. I kind of almost feel like I missed the point of this book. I was like, wait, what is the purpose of this book? Like, I don't know. I had a really hard time connecting to this one. There are a bunch of other books like within that series following George. I might give them a try. I don't know. Let me know what you think, because I've heard some of them are like really good, but then also people were saying that this one is really good, and I beg to differ. I don't know. I kind of feel like, you know, when everyone is in on an inside joke except for you, and you feel like you're an outcast and you don't know what's going on. That's how I felt about this book. Like I didn't quite understand the hype. Then moving on, I had three-star books. So the first one was An Exploration of Existential Indifference in a Void of Confidence, or Good Boy, a Novel by Gavin Dillinger. So this is a horror comedy about a man who buys a house. He just like buys a house online. He doesn't know anything about it. And turns out there's a portal to hell in the bedroom. So he is just kind of like dealing with these creatures and these things that pop up out of this portal to hell. And he also has Munch, which is a hellhound, this dog from hell, who helps him like deal with all these crazy situations that arise. It's very just I don't know, it's just like a lot of little things happening. There's no solid plot point, which was my complaint about this book. Like, there's not a lot of structure to it. It's just like little things keep happening, and like his dog is there, and the dog is fucking awesome, by the way. So I really enjoyed like the horror comedy and the dog and like those aspects, but I wish that there was like a solid plot point that happened so it was a little more structured. But yeah, I would still recommend it. Like I said, it was cute, it was a fun time, whatever. Next was Sleeper Train by John Lynch and Jay Bauer. This is about this train. So there's a train that is kind of like a cross-country road trip sort of train, and all these elite rich people pay to go on like vacation on this train, and it's like anything goes. It's kind of like a sexual fantasy, like you can do whatever you want on this train, you know, fulfill your fantasies. And a lot of couples go on here to kind of like, you know, rejuvenate their relationship or their marriage or whatever. So that's this book. So it's like kind of like pornographic. It's like extreme horror porn, and so that's going on. But then also there's a serial killer on the train. So there's this what is he? The Cleaver or something or other, and he's been killing people on this train. So there's a US Marshal that's trying to figure out like who the serial killer is, if he's on the train, what's going on. Lots of different POVs. It is kind of like an over-the-top 80s, 90s retro, like horror, old horror sort of vibe to it. Am I making sense? And, you know, it was outside of my comfort zone. I still enjoyed it. It was well written. Just a lot of POV switching, a lot of smut. It is, you know, because of all the POV switches, it was more plot heavy, which I typically enjoy more character driven. So, I mean, I don't really have any complaints about it. It just was outside of my comfort zone personally, but I can see a lot of people enjoying this one. And like I said, it is pretty violent also, like it is extreme horror. My next 3-star was I Can Be a Better You by Taryn Fisher. This is a thriller. So this is like, you know, she's gonna steal this woman's life. There's this crazy unhinged woman, and she is trying to steal this other woman's life because she sees that this woman has a child that she thinks possesses the soul of her miscarried baby. So she is trying to steal this child and this woman's husband and basically like start her own family with her family. So she moves in next door, she's stalking her. It's unhinged woman to the max, okay? And I really enjoyed this. It was a slow burn thriller, doesn't have a lot of twists, more on the drama side of things, which I actually appreciate. So I did enjoy this one. I do think the second half, when we start getting POVs from the other woman and her husband, it was predictable. Like it was just like waiting for them to catch up what we already knew about the unhinged stalker woman. So I didn't think the second half was all that thrilling, but I do still like it, and I would still recommend it if you are looking for something just like a slow burn drama thriller, unhinged woman. Look no further. Then moving into 4-star books, I had 1, 2, 3, 4, I think. Yeah, 4 4-star books. So the first one being the Shriekarama Spook Show Experience by Judith Sonnet. This is a little novella about this cinema, and basically they're doing a live spook show. So they're showing these like old retro horror movies, and then there's like this live aspect where there are people dressed up that kind of jump out at you, and we're following this boy who goes to this movie theater to watch the show. He's like 15, and you know, we learn about him and how he likes old movies, and then we're also getting POVs from the people working at this theater and working for the spook show, and we're getting their take on things and kind of what's going on. And something goes wrong, so people aren't acting quite right. no one knows if these people are acting or if there's actually like a killer or something going on at the movie theater. I really just like where this ended up going. The ending was fantastic. I think it was really well done. I loved just like that older horror movie vibe to it. I think, you know, Judith's love for older movies really shined throughout this novella, and I really ended up having a fun time with this. It was kind of like a breath of fresh air, something new, something different that I haven't really seen before. And also, there is like a tiny bit of extreme horror, like 1 or 2 scenes, but it did more so lean towards general horror. So I think this would be good for someone that isn't looking to read like a super graphic read. But yeah, camera just died, but yeah, this was cute and I really liked this one. And then I read Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead by Emily Austen. Loved this one. So this is about this girl who has severe anxiety, literally me, and she finds this flyer for like free therapy or whatever at this church. So she goes to this church to like try to attend a therapy session, and here the receptionist died, and so they're looking for a new receptionist, and the priest or the pastor or whatever, he thinks that she's there for a job interview, and he offers her the job to be the receptionist, but she is too like socially awkward and anxious to correct him and tell him no. So she accepts the job and she starts working there and realizes that the receptionist may have been murdered. So there's like a murder investigation going on, and it's funny, it's cute, but overall this book was very like sad and very heavy, talking about anxiety. It had an amazing anxiety rep. The more that I think about this, this might be like 4.5 territory. I don't know. I really love this one a lot. And I thought that this had like the most accurate anxiety rep I've ever read in my life. And just the way that she is so fearful of death and thinking about like, oh my God, everyone's gonna die soon. All my loved ones are gonna die one day and I'm gonna die one day. And like her health anxiety, this was so extremely relatable to me and kind of the things that I suffer with and go through. And I just absolutely love this main character. I loved this book so much. Like the more that I talk about it, the more I'm like, this was one of my favorite books that I've read this month. So good, so well done. Highly recommend. Then I had Because You're Mine by Christopher Triana. So this is a novella that comes out in July, and this was in that dark embrace. Sorry, my neck hurts really bad. This was in the dark embrace like limited edition book that came out with Mona. I always forget her last name. I'm terrible with names, but anyways, I did not have a chance to read that, so he sent me this one, and I love this. So this is dark romance mixed with a little bit of extreme horror. So we are following this woman, Shelby, who's a nurse, and she enjoys killing. She's a nurse who kills her patients, okay? And she is obsessed with killing old people. And we are following this man, Brian, and his mom. He hates his mom. She's terrible. He's like dealing with her. She's, you know, sickly and bedridden. And so he takes care of her and he wants her. So one day, his mom ends up in the hospital and Shelby is her nurse. And he becomes infatuated with Shelby and he realizes that she has a dark little secret, right? And the two of them strike up a little romance. So, oh, and she becomes like the home nurse for them. Okay, so that's this book. It does lean more towards the dark romance aspects. It's not super graphic extreme horror. I mean, a little bit, but not much. But I thought that this was something new. It was fresh. I love the realistic horror aspects in books. Like this felt like a podcast, you know, like this is one of those like nurses who kill podcasts, you know? And I just ended up really enjoying this one. I do think like the second half was kind of on the slower side and was like a lot of dialogue between these characters, but you know, so I would have liked to see even a little bit more of like their crazy adventures together. But overall, I really enjoyed this one. I highly recommend. I love realistic type horror books like this. If you love serial killers, not if you love serial killers, like, you know what I mean. If you love the trope of serial killers, hopefully you don't love serial killers. Anyways, if you love that trope, look no further. I need a drink. I'm losing my voice. Powering through. Next, my last 4-star here is Parasocialite by Brittany Menjivar. This is a little book of like vignettes. We have some poetry, lots of poetry, some short stories, that sort of thing. And most of these, or all of these, or almost all of these, have to do with parasocial relationships, so one-sided relationships. And I really enjoyed this. I'm not like a huge poetry reader, but I really enjoyed most of them, and a lot of them resonated with me. Her writing is beautiful. Like, this is so well done. I love the topic of parasocial relationships. It's something I could talk about forever and ever. And I just ended up, I'm kind of like surprised how much I actually really enjoyed this one. This just felt like you're hanging out with a friend chit-chatting. I don't know how else to describe this, but I mean, her writing is just so fucking fantastic. Loved it. Then, moving into, I have a 4.5 here, and it is Ein Hollow by Tim McGregor. This is like a Frankenstein spin-off. So you are following this woman, Agnes, in the 1700s. She lives on this island with her husband and children and 3 other families. There's only like 20 some people total on this island. And, you know, she's dealing with a really shitty husband, a really shitty home life. And one day, this stranger pops up on the island, and everyone's like, who the hell is this? And she becomes like his kind of like housemaid and ends up falling in love with him. And it is Victor Frankenstein, okay? So that's kind of what this book is. And it does have twists, and it ends up becoming very bleak, very dark, very depressing. I loved the second half of this. The writing, stunning. So fucking well written. I mean, Tim McGregor knows how to write, okay? The second half of this was so up my alley. The first half I was like, I don't really know. It was boring in some parts. It was slow. But then the second half really picked up and really took me by surprise. And I just really loved where this ended up going, how it ended. Highly recommend for fans of gothic horror. This was brilliant. But yeah, since there were some slower parts, it didn't really quite feel like 5-star Obsession. So I gave it a 4.5, but I loved it. Okay, then I have my 2 5-star books. The first one being Invisible Monsters by Chuck Palahniuk. This book is nuts. So you are following this woman who is this, she was this famous like fashion model, and she gets into an accident. She gets shot and her jaw is hanging open, and she has to go to the hospital and go to rehab, and she meets this woman named Brandy that she becomes infatuated with. And Brandy's this trans woman, and they start going on these like illegal adventures together, and you know, Brandy's teaching her about like living in the moment, and you know, who cares about what happened to her. And we start learning about, you know, her past and her ex-fiance, and we're learning about her brother and her parents. And the way that this is written and told is so unique and so wild and batshit insane. And he constantly is like, jump to when this happened, jump to when that happened, jump to this, jump to that, jump to present day, jump to, and it's all over the place. Everything is told out of order. So you're literally piecing this story together as it goes. I was obsessed with this towards the end. It just kept getting better and better and better. I was obsessed with the ending. I could not stop thinking about this. I loved everything about this and how this wrapped up. I was like, oh my God. It all, like, I was blown away. I can't wait to reread this book one day. Absolutely love this one. Highly recommend if you haven't read it already. It's been on my TBR since I was a child. But yeah, this is just so fucking well done. I can't believe the way that he writes. Stunning. Like, someone's brain actually works like this? Crazy. Then my last 5-star book was Exalted by Anna Dorn. This is an unhinged woman book. So this is about a woman who is She's like a scam artist for astrology. So she does birth charts online as a job, and she herself doesn't even believe in astrology. She just wants people's money, and she runs like a meme account. And basically one day she does a birth chart reading for this guy whose chart is exalted, I guess, and she becomes obsessed with him based on his birth chart and starts stalking him. So she is going out of her way to run into this guy, and she is just so fucking crazy and unhinged. And then you're also following this other woman who has borderline personality disorder, and their timelines kind of merge, and they merge paths, and what happens is so batshit insane. This book is wild, it is unhinged, it's hilarious, like laugh out loud hilarious, which I rarely say about a book or anything ever. And I was cackling reading this. This is so funny. If you like astrology, it's a must read. If you like unhinged women, it's a must read. This is one of my favorite books I've ever read. I love it so much. Anna Dorn, I want to travel the world with her, and I'm losing my voice, so I'm gonna go. So that is the end of my wrap up. Let me know what your favorite book you read in June was. I love you, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.